it is incredible that actually people pay for what you're doing and for a piece of your creativity, something that is made out of nothing, something that tells an entire story. And you started with nothing, with zero, with a blank canvas. This is incredible. I feel very privileged to do what I love, to have that passion for it, and to really just keep pushing, keep going, and not quitting.
What I love about art making is that we get to make something. And that thing, like a link on a web page, takes the viewer to a new place when clicked. We get to go to a new world we haven't experienced before. The art they make it's like a standing invitation to come and see. Some art invitations, especially at the beginning of one's career, they're not so inviting because they don't feel sure or complete. Understandably, their art is still forming. But there are exceptions. Amazingly, some extraordinary invitations come from artists relatively early in their careers. From seemingly out of nowhere, someone, somewhere in the world puts it all together, early. Today's guest is Marie Theres Madani. Her recent large paintings stopped me dead in my tracks. Once I saw what she was making, I just wanted more. I wanted to know more about the maker of these gorgeously bold paintings. Her invitation, her art, is so truthful and brave. I had to trust a spontaneous conversation with her would be the same. Well, I was right. Join me now as I meet, for the very first time, Marie Theres Madani. I catch up with her in her studio in Vienna, Austria. And by the way, you can see these paintings and find out more about all she's making by clicking on the podcast at art2life.com. Welcome to Art2Life, a podcast for the creatively curious. My name is Nicholas Wilton, and each week I'll help you rediscover not just the art of your life, but the art in your life. Join me as we explore that perfect blue at twilight, the wild frontiers of art making, and the extraordinary joy of finding your way as you go. Marie, thank you so much for meeting here. We're many, many different hours. I think it's like 11 p.m. at night, my time, and you're in Vienna, Austria, and I think it's like 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning. So thanks so much for being here. I have seen your work, and I've always been curious to meet you and talk to you about what you're making. It's so moving and stirring, and I'm just really excited to dive into all of what you're making.
Yeah, good morning, Nicholas. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited.
So just, I'll remind you guys again that, if you go to the Art2Life website under the podcast for this episode, you can see some of Marie's amazing work. And it might be cool to check that out, while we're speaking, or certainly afterwards, because that gives you a real clue as to what she's up to, and you'll understand more about our conversation. So Marie, before we kind of dive into it, I'm just so curious, your background a little bit and your training. Is this where you've been studying, where you grew up? Where did you grow up?
Actually, not at all. I come from a very, very different field. I used to be a creative person all throughout my life, but I ended up studying law, actually. So I was a law student for many years. But on the side, I know it's something very, very different. Something very, very dry compared to being a creative person, to creating art. But this was a very, very logical thing for me to go to law university. And after law university, I worked in the law field for several years. And I just figured after 2 years of working in that field that it doesn't really fulfill me. My heart is not in it. And beside my studies in law, I did a lot of photography. I did a lot of drawing and music and dancing for several years. But I'm actually coming out of photography. I worked with magazines. I did especially fashion, editorial, and beauty photography. and worked in an entire team, big team. And I think like 4 years ago, I started to dive into the art process again, just to have something that I can do for myself, where I'm dependent only on what I do and I control every step of the way. And what I started with was actually experimenting with media photography and with the media of painting. And I tried to combine them as good as I could. And this was probably for 2 years. This was kind of my technique, to find a combination, find a synergy between photography and painting.
But it was all abstract, right? I mean, pretty much the photography, like the subject matter, I mean.
The subject matter was more or less abstract. Yes, I had phases where I concentrated more on portraits, more on the figurative skills. But all in all, there is a voice throughout my entire career as an artist, throughout my entire work, that is a loud voice and that is very dynamic and abstract. Even if it's like a portrait, it is an abstracted portrait.
Yeah, I get that totally. And that the feeling of the work and the voice of it is so strong. And that's what's just struck me. I mean, you've come out of a law background, but I mean, even commercial photography, I mean, how was that in your commercial photography, or was it just something that you needed to express and then let me just take hold of these materials, control this so I can express this specific kind of feeling, this spaciousness, this kind of wildness that you have in your work? Was that evident to you before in your more commercial work, or was it just started like right out of the gate when you just started doing your own personal work?
Even the commercial work I did for magazines and where I worked in an entire big team was always a little bit more in the artsy field. It was more expressive. It was more dark and bright lighting. The entire setting was, if you may say, something more abstracted, not in a very commercial mainstream way. And when I started painting again, it was more something just for myself. So I don't have this entire team where I'm dependent on the weakest link of that team, to be honest. So I couldn't control every step of the way. And I was always drawn to the abstracted voice because you can express like everything with it. And it is a very, very powerful voice. So if you do something very realistic and then maybe find a title for it, like vase on a wooden floor, this can be in the technique and in the color choice. It can be very expressive, but this is not something I'm really, really drawn into. It's more the feeling that everybody can mirror themselves in a piece of work. They can find themselves in a piece of work, and it's completely up to whoever sees the work to interpret something into that piece. So in my feeling, if I create something, there's a dialogue between me and a piece of art, between me and color and the canvas. And as soon as the work is exhibited and as soon as other people see the work, there is a total different part of that life, of that piece of art. And it evolves to something sometimes totally different. It doesn't have something to do with me necessarily anymore. But that piece of work has different lives depending on who is in the dialogue with that piece of art.
Right, of course. Yes. It's just such a big step. I mean, you're accessing such an internal, your internal conversation the voice is strong. And it just strikes me that sounds like you came out of the gate with that voice. And it's so strong. And usually it takes longer to develop. And I'm just curious, can you put words to what the feeling is that you're kind of after in the work? Because it's cohesive and it's consistent. I mean, I can, but I mean, are you aware that's a strength that your work has that a lot of work doesn't? A lot of work is getting there, or a couple pieces feel like the person in a really powerful way, and other ones are kind of off, but you have a consistency that you're tapping into something, and that's interesting to me. And so evident when I look at the work, and it's strong. It's like you put your hand in a current of water and it's strong. And I'm just like that, I would not guess that came out of a law background. You pivoted, but can you put words to what the abstracted voice or just the feeling of the work has for you? How you describe that internal place?
I don't really want to pin it down on just like that one emotion, that one feeling, because in my opinion, it is evident that you have the entire range of feeling. If I'm happy all the time, I can't do very, very deep work, to be honest. So it has to be the right dosage of everything that I'm able to feel, everything that I experienced in my life, and to dig very, very deep for these feelings. So actually, if I'm in a very, very good mood, it's not the best start for the creative process. So actually, even like before, I'm listening to very dramatic music, to trying to put myself in a state of mind where I say I can get a hold of that very deep, that melancholic feelings, that longing feeling of something that has a special tension to it, that has that complexity to it. And, there has to be a time for everything, for different parts of the artist's work. So, for example, like in the mornings, I can't actually be very, very creative. I can't get the hold on these special feelings. So my time of the creative process is always in the afternoon, evening, or even at night, where everything is calm, everybody's sleeping, and I love to work during the night. And with a law background, this is also part of me. This was something that happened organically. But as I said before, I used to be a creative person. I used to be a loud person, and I still am. Many people tell me, or they can't actually handle my loudness all the time. And I'm very expressive, even when it comes to private life, to normal conversation. I can be very, very passionate. And in my work and having that very bold and loud voice, also speaking in my work, nobody's judging me for that. I don't have to necessarily get in that direct dialogue with somebody and somebody's judging me for the way that I speak and I express my feelings, but it is just there and it speaks for itself. So my work consists of my inner chaos, of my inner deep movements and feelings, obviously. And when I work very intuitively. So it is kind of like a dance, if it's sometimes like a literal dance on canvas or around a piece of fabric, around a frame, or it is a continuation of that dance in my mind. And having too much structure beforehand and having too much concept, this is not how I work. This is not what works for me. But working intuitively means that I do a lot of research beforehand. I look at a lot of different art. I listen to podcasts, to interviews. I really, really deal with what makes something work. I questioning myself all the time. What feeling does it make me feel? What works? What color combination works? What gives the most tension, but it's still giving you an answer and is not only provoking? So with my work, I don't necessarily have to provoke, but I want to tell a story. I want to tell like the whole bundle of stories and not necessarily ask questions, but give answers instead.
It's so evident in the work, how you're articulating it. Of course, it's not singular in the source of its expression, but it's so rich and so varied, and there's such a complexity here. I think it's so interesting that I've talked to a lot of women actually who this criticism or this sense of being too much, being too loud in a way. And it's odd. I've had a couple, 2 or 3 conversations with women that I know about this very thing. And it just strikes me as, I don't know if men hit this as much. It's not that important actually, but I mean, in terms of what you're making of your work, but I get it. Like your work it's now this thing off to the side that gives you so much. Your voice can be developed and displayed and expressed without the encumbrances of society or you're too noisy or whatever. I just think that must be so frustrating to feel that at all. Like I don't feel that as a man. I love that you should be expressing yourself in all the ways, and we want to know who you are, and we want that. That's the gift you're giving us. And it's wow, that you found a way to express who you are, but in your art. But it's just odd to me that there's almost like this is a way you've had to kind of go because you feel that kind of limitation a little bit.
This is the moment of freedom when I'm at the studio, when I'm working, I'm only with myself. I'm only with my own thoughts. I don't have to deal with somebody else telling me I'm too loud, I'm too noisy, I'm too quiet, I'm too calm, I'm too much that and too little of that. And I can be whatever I want to be, and I can say whatever I want to say. And this is like the pure freedom of expression. So this was always a necessary part of my life. As I said before, I used to be a dancer, and this is also that nonverbal type of expression where you can really feel in touch with yourself and also showcase something that people don't necessarily put like in a box.
Yeah.
And with music, it is the same thing. So not having that kind of expression and not that kind of possibility for expression, this would be horrible for me. So the painting is a necessary part of my life.
Absolutely. I mean,
but dealing with that and also getting to know myself better.
Yeah. It's like I'm becoming in front of you, and please stand over there. You have so much freedom. Your work has that. It's almost like a Titanic quality to it. It's like there's a vastness to this that it's not about an individual figuring herself out. You're touching on much bigger. The feelings of freedom and expression are more universal in how I know you know this, but it's evident in the work. And I think that's what makes it so powerful. It's really beautiful and rare, I think. And are you still utilizing the photography in your work, or is it more just the painting right now?
It is currently more the painting.
Mm-hmm.
A year ago, I started going pretty large on my dimensions, on my canvas dimensions. And currently I'm just like focusing on painting. That doesn't mean I just use that one medium. I work mainly with acrylics, but I also use oils. I use soft pastels and oil pastels. I use spray paint. Right now I use a lot of chalk. I fell in love with chalk. It's incredible structure and feeling and consistency. I love it. And it's just pigments, with like really, really bright colors and combining all these different things. It is something else with painting. If I don't like that one part of a piece, I can actually just like throw more color on top. And this is what I'm doing a lot of times. I'm layering.
Yeah.
So this means a huge piece of work takes forever because of the drying process. It's different consistencies and I'm layering up. That's also why I think the work is very, very deep and has different dimensions to it. It's not flat. It has a deepness to it. It is something else with drawing. Obviously, I can erase a line, but it has to be much more exact. When I'm working with the color that is mixed up with like water, it's more liquid or it's more crumble feeling to it. It gives me the possibility to really, really play around with different structures and different heights on the painting as well, with that deepness that I can't really do with drawing.
You get to do so much editing and the course corrections and all of those and the evidence of those little attempts that you cover up add to the richness of what you're making. I totally see that. And I noticed that I was watching some of your videos, you orientate yourself, it seems, with drawing or line marking. Maybe it's the chalk you're beginning with. And it was just something, you're working in a way that's similar to me, where it's like you're going to all the places in the work. It seems like when I was watching you, you're touching everything in the beginning and the way you're overall working. It's like you're finding your ground kind of, and then it starts going. And I just thought that was really interesting. Is that the way you approach it, the way you start with, I think it's chalk actually, or pencil or graphite or charcoal or something.
With chalk, but I started doing that only a few months ago. I started just sketching out and drawing marks on a blank piece of canvas. And I really, really liked that boldness of the lines in the beginning. Just like kind of the same with the colors that come afterwards, that boldness and that intuitively working. I do the same thing with the chalk lines in the beginning. And these give me a little bit of an idea of the composition, where it's going. Mm-hmm. But all in all, there is not that fixed concept in my mind. So I'm being asked a lot of times if I see the painting before it's finished, and then it's exactly what I had in mind. And this is not what works for me. It is more the process, and I'm still trying to figure that out, but trusting the process even more and finding inspiration in that one little mark that you made, and then focusing on that little mark and seeing how the composition grows and evolves with the process itself. I love not knowing what the piece is going to look like in the end. There is an idea, obviously. There's like a feeling going on. I work in series because I think this is the best way to not be distracted by too many ideas, but it's like sticking with one topic, with one idea at a time, and really get into it.
Yeah, go deeper.
And doing a series out of, go deeper, exactly. It doesn't matter if it only consists of like 4 paintings, but still, you did an entire series, and the idea evolves even better.
Oh, absolutely.
When working like in pairs. And because you said before this like bold and loud voice, I was at my collector's just like a few days ago, and they bought a piece from mine from 2 years ago and the piece that is just finished. And these pieces are very, very different. The piece 2 years ago was a portrait inspired by the Austrian painter Egon Schiele, where I took the self-portraits in focus and I reinterpreted it completely different. It is a portrait. It is a face, it is something not as abstract as I'm doing right now. And many people are confused because they think you're an artist, you have to have found your one style, and then you have to stick with it until the rest of your artistic career. Several years ago, I had that pressure going on, and I thought like, well, I can't change up my style now because I'm not going to be recognized anymore. But this was probably a very, very big breakthrough for me to allowing myself to change it up completely.
Yeah.
You can change your style as an artist if the voice, if the message, if that feeling behind it stays the same. And just like sticking to the one style and not changing up anything for years and years. This is something of the most horrible things for me, just like imagining it. And boring, extremely boring. So repeating myself too much, it's not something that I want or am interested in.
No, absolutely. It just is complete opposite of what you're involved in. I mean, it's like not only someone telling you you're too much or too little, but the pressure is do this same thing in this way. And this is your box. The box becomes even smaller, like that's a nightmare. But I love that when you're mining, when you're looking within yourself for your work and tapping into that, it doesn't matter. The materials, the fluidity of you're using oil paint, you're using pastel, you're using collage photography. It could be kind of look like an Egon Schiele drawing even, and you even come through on that, so there is tremendous freedom in that. And collectors who get that, they will buy the old work, they'll buy the new work, and they can't wait to see what you're going to make next as you go. I mean, they're investing in your journey, which is wonderful. That's the best.
What really, really is. Yes, exactly. So the inspiration I have all the time is actually challenging myself even more, pushing myself even more to get better, to get more complex, to get even deeper, and not sticking in one place, not being too naive in that matter.
Yes. Does fear enter into this work for you?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean like scary as in like showcase it?
No, like vulnerability of just digging and showing too much, or just showing what's not been shown before is scary, but I don't feel a lot of that I don't feel you holding back a lot. And that's evident in the work, but I'm sure it's hard at times. I'm just wondering how you talk about the vulnerability of this.
Well, probably the biggest struggle I have at the moment, and this will be for the next years for sure, still be, is actually the struggle with myself, the struggle with that inner critic, that voice that tells you it's not good enough, you're a fraud. What actually are you doing? Do you even have an idea of what you're doing here? And it could be brighter, it could be more complex, it could be that and that and that, and not liking what you're doing and judging yourself after every brush stroke, after every mark making, judging if this is art, if this is good enough to actually showcase it, or if it's even like good enough for yourself, if you pushed it over the limits every time. And this can be a very destructive thing. It's hindering you and bothering you and sometimes even like destroying work because you hate it so much and you can't look at it anymore. And this happened to me before, but that inner critic is also evident for getting better, for pushing it even further. So with that said, it is the balance between it, really using that inner critic and that perfectionist inside of yourself to really use it in a way that is very, very efficient, but you're not destroying yourself and you're not burning out.
Yeah. Did you have formal training in art making, or do you think of mentors? Do you have teachers? Do you have because that's what sometimes when I get stuck and I'm having a hard day and I think of a painter or someone that I admire, or that, it helps me a little. Just seeing the path of other people, even though it's completely different than me. And I'm wondering if that's how sometimes, like, tell me a little bit about your training, or have you just been completely figuring this out yourself?
I never went to art school and never had a training, formal one at least. Mm-hmm. So I'm a completely self-taught artist. Yeah. Everything that I know, I taught myself, or talk with other people that already figured it out for themselves, and just not like copying it, but seeing what works and what doesn't work. That said, I have many, many friends and colleagues that went to art school or are still studying there. And they actually come to me for advice concerning like the business side of it all. Why have you figured it out? Why can you make actually a living from it after just like a short period of time? So I'm very, very proud to have figured it out by myself. It's still a process, obviously, but not have to have a mentor or a teacher, but being your own teacher and just experimenting, doing whatever, and really understanding why something works or not.
Yes, but it's amazing to me. And it really is, it's apparent. And that's, I keep talking about the current or the strength of it, or it's not diluted. Your work is just so personal. And I think that's part of why it is because you have been following yourself since the beginning. We go to art school, we copy other people, all the things, the times we have to spend, and then we eventually slowly start putting it together for ourselves. But if you just put someone in a room with a bunch of art materials and said, here you go, it's bound to be pretty powerful right out of the get-go, because it is what makes work saleable, I believe, and is when it feels like the person, and that's why your friends are coming to you. They're like, help.
What I really, really would like to do, like in the future, actually applying to art school, just to have a training in completely different things, to have that critics, that outer mentorship, just like that dialogue with somebody. So being a self-taught artist means you're reevaluating everything by your own standards. So it may happen that you're actually stuck because you need a different perspective. So what I like to do is brainstorm with a lot of colleagues, go to a lot of artist talks to really bounce off ideas as well.
Yeah, to get outside of yourself. That's so, so important to grow. You're going to grow in the work.
Exactly. And in the future, I would love to also incorporate even different material into my work, working with wood and with metal and doing installation work and doing sculptural work. So I want to do everything.
Yeah.
It's not sufficient just like to do that one thing. I would like to do everything and by myself. This is like the second biggest struggle I'm having, that I have to control everything, and I'm doing everything like from morning to the end. I'm doing everything by myself. So being an artist, and many people forget that being an artist does not only mean sitting in your studio and scribbling a little bit and painting a little bit, splashing around color, but it also means being a businesswoman, understanding the business side of it all, as unromantic as it may seem. But at the end of the day, if you want to make a living from it, if you want to do that for the rest of your life, you have to understand also how marketing works, how presentation works. And in the nowadays times, I have a feeling it is a possibility to actually do that on your own without a gallery, without a collector, investor, or creators team behind you. You can do it by yourself. It is a struggle. It is a lot of work. You have to think of all the different aspects of it, but it is possible. And what I built for myself in the last 3 years is actually incredible. And I'm very, very proud of it. I'm very proud of the success I'm having.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You can reach so many people. And if the work is powerful, it translates. And that's, I coach a lot of artists, and lots of people come to me asking about the business part of this. And really the first order of the day is make the work authentic. And there's lots of ways to go once that's in place. But that's a much harder thing to teach, by the way. We can talk about presentation and all of that. Are collectors reaching out to you personally, or are you outside of the gallery world, or are you kind of in both?
I am in both. It depends. Sometimes it is the galleries that speak for me and that represent my work. And sometimes it is a personal thing. So with Instagram and with Facebook, there are a lot of people that are interested in my work and that just like DM me or send me an email. And then I reply to that personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, you can just reach so many people, Are you working I'm just curious about your practice. You say you work in the afternoon or the evening. Is it, 4 hours nonstop, or how do you like to be when you're making art? I'm just curious.
So like my daily routine, it is still early in the morning. So I try to start my day around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. There is that calmness before like 10 or 11 in the morning where I say I just have that quietness for myself. I put on a little bit of music. What I try to incorporate now in my daily routine is just like an hour or maybe 2 hours of drawing, just trying to work on my skills as well as my knowledge about, art history or about the contemporary art scene. So I'm listening to podcasts and listening to a lot of interviews. And this is what I'm doing before 10 or 11. I'm trying to do that. If I manage to do that like 3 or 4 times per week, it is a success. It is a good thing. And the mornings are also for the entire organization. So replying to emails, organizing, sending out portfolios, organizing shipping overseas, what is a struggle, always is. And in the afternoon, the creative process starts. So I'm trying to figure out where to go next, if I already have an unfinished painting where I continue working, or if I start brand new, if there's still something I have to finish, but actually I'm in the mindset for something new, clean slate already. And then it is, maybe like 4 or 5, can be up to 8 hours. Can be up to, my days start very early and end very, very late. So it is probably like 14 to 16 hours days. And this without weekend, without holiday. So this is also something I'm trying to figure out, not to burn myself out.
Yeah.
And having time for, like social contact and events and other hobbies and sport and something like that. So it can be up to 1 o'clock in the night if I feel I have to finish that. I can't leave it as it is because I'm getting obsessed with that one idea and I want to see progress. And if I haven't seen progress in that painting, I keep doing, but
Wow.
sometimes doesn't work out. You're still in the studio at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's no progress and there's only frustration. And then you're just like getting tired and say, all right, the day is over. I tried my best and I'm trying my best tomorrow again.
Yeah. No, that's
maybe you can relate to that.
Oh yeah, completely. And I just get so it's just dogged, it starts to becoming about like, I am not stopping till I get this, and keep going and going and going and going and going. Wow. Well, so listen, as we're kind of wrapping this up, I'm just curious, like maybe you could share with us maybe one really big thing that you've learned that's just helping you so much. I mean, you shared this idea about you're actually completely free to make any kind of work you want, which is huge. As long as it feels like you can drive this thing anywhere. That's huge. But I mean, lately, or a sense of what's coming that you're really excited about, or where is the energy for you right now?
So probably the biggest thing of last year was that I was able to quit my day job and became a full-time artist. So I did a ton of different things in these last years, but figuring out, okay, I can be risky and I can make a living from it. And I'm just like focusing entirely on that career. Many people, they don't take you seriously when saying you're an artist, and they would believe you're sleeping under the bridge, but it works out, if there's work behind it, if there is an authentic, big, loud voice, if the content is right and you're doing everything right, then you're not necessarily dependent on luck, on being lucky. No. You can make it work for yourself. And having said that, it is turning out to be the best decision ever. Last year, I also exhibited at Miami Art Week, was my debut for the international art market. And I'm very, very happy to have had that experience. In the future, there's coming a lot of more travel, a lot of more international evolving of where I'm showcasing and where my entire work is. I mean, this is an incredible thing to have shipped something on the other side of the world, because people reach out to you, and it's always sad to say goodbye to a piece of art because there's so much of yourself inside that work. But it is incredible that actually people pay for what you're doing and for a piece of your creativity, something that is made out of nothing, something that tells an entire story. And you started with nothing, with zero, with a blank canvas. This is incredible. I feel very privileged to do what I love, to have that passion for it, and to really just keep pushing, keep going, and not quitting.
Oh, it's so good. That's so beautifully said. I read somewhere that when your bravery increases, it just so happens that your luck does too. And I think that it isn't about luck, but it's about bravery, and you just really embody it. And I'm so excited for you and all that's coming. It's just really, you're really an inspiration. So thank you so much for this conversation. I just can't wait to see. I'm just cheering from the sidelines over here. I can't wait to see what you make next.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited for what's coming. And I'm very curious about what's coming next.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Art2Life show. If you enjoyed the podcast, please help me get the word out by sharing it with your friends on Instagram at Art2Life_world. The recording of this and all episodes, along with a place to leave comments, see additional photos, and discover a whole new approach to making art, can be found by going to art2lifepodcast.com. And secondly, if you could leave a rating and review in whatever app you're listening on today, I would super appreciate it. It makes a big difference. And last but not least, before you go, if you'd like to be on my artist list, every Sunday morning I send out a video blog all about art making. Go to art2lifepodcast.com to sign up. And all these links are in the show notes, of course. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.